Being recorded.
So because of the trouble we had last time in RTP, I decided to use my local machine, but as I was explaining to Shangar, we'll get probably another 2 sessions on ISG here in the lab. And then I will give you guys some procedure to install it on this machine in RTP. And eventually you can start then deploying an ISG subscriber. If you have questions then, because I suppose you will, or you want to troubleshoot, then we will troubleshoot your lab. And eventually, if you are very good, which maybe I've never seen anybody doing it from the first time, even not me, but if you would be super smart in doing it in one time, I can still cause trouble in your lab and eventually see if you can troubleshoot it. So that's the next future. So try to keep in mind what I'm saying, but we will go through a lab maybe with a group of people of 2 or 3 so that you can really learn something out of it, because otherwise it doesn't make any sense, especially in ISG. If you don't practice and you're just watching this training, you will never get to understand anything if you don't do at least it once, or at least know where your lab is and where you can actually play with it. So, just to come back, I actually created this, and to show you, or actually this time, I will work on this machine here, virtual machine that I have on my Mac. It's exactly the same that you have in RTP, but running in Calo. So you see, I can actually create a Ubuntu machine.
I'm sorry, are you sharing something? Because I don't see any being shared.
Let me check. I think I didn't. Where is that WebEx? Okay, sorry. Share. Okay. You see my desktop now? Yeah. Okay. So, like I said, we had trouble last time in RTP, so I didn't want to keep maybe having just exactly the same. Here it's a VM that you can even install on your Mac. This is what I did. And in that VM, I have created all those scripts that you have actually in RTP. This is the machine I'm using to deploy stuff like this 64 bits, for example. So, and then I just make a copy of it and move it into Calo, and that's how it works. So same as before, if I want to look at my lab, I actually copy today all the config from RTP, so we are at the same stage, or to access the lab with this one, and see if my processor, my routers are running, and then different telnet to access. Here you can see I don't use any radius for the moment, but this is what we're going to actually test today also. So I need 4 routers like before. I'm just going to move them here on the screen. So we are almost the same than when we were looking at RTP case. Like I said, I just copy the config from my lab, move them here, and everything start working. So you can probably do just the same. The only thing is you need to create this lab yourself to have the tunneling and so on correctly installed. But the config within iOS would be exactly the same. Doesn't matter. Except for accessing the Linux, of course. So here is my routing. I still have the OSP route showing OSPF. So our test was actually to bring up DHCP client last time. So this one I don't need. I will move it away. And this is my ISG. Move this one here. So the idea was to bring some user with DHCP. And this is what we did here, actually, to test. We were at the stage of testing this IP DHCP user that was actually coming here. And like I said at that time, no need to actually install ISG. You can start testing the DHCP functionality without any ISG. Same for PPPoE, actually. In iOS, it's a little more easy. If you would go to iOS XR, you need actually already to install policies and so on to treat the PvPoE usable. Here, it's a lot more easy. So the DHCP that we configure was this one here locally. So we use a certain source of network, and we actually do a relay to this address. If I look at my show IP route, this is going to the other router that is here, and that's where I have the local 30/32 install, which is here. So obviously I would need DHCP client, and this is also here easy to find out. Show IP interface brief. When you do a lab, it will actually tell you if it's actually returned from DHCP, like here. So you have the IP address allocated. You can confirm it's coming from the same with show IP DHCP binding. You will see it in the server, and you can see my address is actually learned at the DHCP server too. Whether it's a iOS one in your lab or something else, we don't really care. So this is the process of DHCP. Once you start installing ISG, you can interact with that process, because at the end, this guy here, this server, will send a DHCP ACK to the ISG, and the DHCP ACK should potentially arrive at the CPE. But in case of a problem with ISG, or eventually just a reject because of Regis doesn't like you, you will probably not see a DHCP ACK arriving at the client. Well, actually, here we have a first trouble, probably, like you see. For the moment, this interface is flapping. So for those that do not know much of PvP, you have a debug PvP negotiation. Why am I talking about the PvP? Is because it's a virtual access, so probably something is going on with PvP. I think maybe some of the VPN might use virtual access too, but it's named a bit differently. So if I would look at what's going on here, or this virtual access is actually coming up and down and from where, I can see the messages bound to the other one. You see, it's already creating some bugs here. So show interface dialer 1. You see that sometimes he gives the information that he bound something to it. Although here I see, and if you look at the PvP, you can actually look at the state. And here, PvP LCP open, which is probably not a good state. You really want to get to a network protocol, which would mean, for example, IPv6 or IPv4, which actually in PvP would be called IPCP or something like this. And CP, some control protocol for v6 also. So, but I can actually enable what is going on here. Maybe if I'm only on the subscriber side, debug PvP negotiation would probably tell me something. Since I see that it's stuck in LZP open. Probably I can even debug PvPoE because it's a PvPoE. We can see both. I guess it will be for the next time. Show lock. Maybe just to let you know, there's a lot of customer when they disable, when they troubleshoot SG, they will actually look at the telnet doing monitor. Don't do this. Really grab everything in the buffer and grab the buffer. You have the best chance to see everything that's going on. So here, what do I see? I see the LCP phase in PvP, like usual. What is it? That's a negotiation between both peers, and each peer can decide what he wants. If the other one agrees with it, that's it. It's okay. If they don't agree with it, you will need to discuss maybe a bit more. Sorry. But the idea is that you are come to an agreement. and not only agreement of what I want to use towards you, but what you want to use towards me. So in PvP, you always need to look at both sides. So an outgoing configuration request needs to be replied with incoming packet. What can it be? Confnac, confac, whatever. But obviously, you need to match this. So I see this configuration request going on. I will look at the incoming confac here. Seems okay, but actually, I didn't really request much. And he actually just look at the magic number. Is like not requesting anything. Magic number is just there to actually understand if you're looping on the wire line. So here, an incoming configuration request with an MTU set at 1492. This side doesn't really like it, and he says no 1492. I want 1500. Then this part is not discussed, which means that at this moment the aggregation is not able to complete the LCP negotiation. If it doesn't complete, even though the other part complete, because we can see incoming ACK on my outgoing configuration, if it doesn't complete, LCP will not complete either, which means you will not go to authentication or even network protocol. So since he actually NAC, we have to resend something with the value that he agree. If I don't agree, I will probably try to resend the same, but then you have a loop like a LCP negotiation for a while, and then eventually stopping. So here we see this config NAC, and we see normally we should see outgoing configuration request, which I don't really see. Oh no, sorry, it's the outgoing config NAC, so incoming configuration request, which adapts himself to the 1500 that we actually ask. And then we agree with what the aggregator actually sent to us. And then that means LCP is open. We can go to the authentication, and in this phase, state open is for LCP, not for authentication. But in the after the authentication, I don't see much. See? No, maybe there were still some left over in the show log to happen at that time. But I can see here, nothing really happens with this authentication request. Again, I don't know what the size is of this debug. Well, not that much. We'll probably better increase it. Is it stupid? But it happens all the time on those small router, and you miss information. So no, since I changed the size, it will probably reset everything in the buffer, so I need to do it again. Show lock. Also some events. First phase PVPoE comes up with PADI, the offer we request. We actually got a session from the remote side. So far nothing happened, just the PVPoE. We go into the LCP phase and we wait here. It seems that we were not really losing something, but it just stopped from time to time. Oh, here, finally I get some new info where I can see an authentication NAC, but look at the timestamp. It's 1 second later. Oh, nice. And then we have a stop. We see an incoming termination request coming from the aggregator, and eventually the PATI to terminate the PVPoE. So we definitely have some kind of authentication issue. This is easy because now we can look at the side of the authentication. If I do, I could eventually do the same here. Debug PVP negotiation. Because I potentially do not know which interface is affected here. If the customer would tell me, maybe I could concentrate, but for the moment, I don't really know. I see this one here, and unfortunately with this one, I'm not really sure where it is. If I'm really quick, I can probably do show subscriber detail and try to figure out the interface, physical interface. Let me just move this one here. It's a bit less troubling. Because potentially you will always be on this side, ISG. So here I can see something coming in. Still don't really know which interface is affected, but I see this stuff here. I see the phase authentication, incoming authentication request, and I see a timeout. And we terminate. Exactly what I saw at the CPE. But here I have this additional message. There is authentication fail. Okay, so now I'm on the console here. Show log. We'll remove the debug. Anyway, when you have an aggregator or ISG, you better put the debug where you're actually typing stuff. Another maybe stuff is good to have a terminal size. 6 size. What was this command again? History size. So you don't have to repeat the command. Retype the command. You can actually do show history like Linux a bit. So let's see where this PVP could come from, and I will check the config. So here we have PVPoE. It's easy. One BBA group. One attached to the virtual template, most likely is this one, so we're actually looking at this interface. PVPoE comes here, it bonds it to virtual access from which we clone virtual template, and virtual template is here with an authentication path, probably a match. If I look at the authentication, I can see the authentication protocol path. Now, what else can actually control authentication? Obviously, AAA. AAA will control this, so I need to go back to the top of the router and see what I have for authentication. And in this case, I can see the authentication is set to PVP default group radius, which means I need to send to radius. What is the radius configuration here? And you can see is group radius, but I don't have any group radius name here. Is because here group radius is the default. So when you type this, you actually go to the default router that is local. The default server, and this is the one that is configured locally with this new method. So the packet is going there. If I start debugging radius, I will probably see it. We'll clear lock. You can do show radius also if you are on the ISG. You can see here, I see an authentication, 229 packets for authentication. You count both accounting and authentication, but you also see a lot of timeout. So I guess just with that command, you will probably understand that the radius doesn't work. However, if I actually ping, that's the first thing that people would do. Doesn't work either. It's interesting. Maybe I just copy too much. So, show IP interface brief. See if I have something matching that network, and it's actually here. The interface is up. So I cannot ping the other side. Maybe because I'm not using the right IP addressing scheme, and I guess this is just because I copied the lab. If I look at my lab, he's saying sign 25 router ID to Ethernet 00. And the route ID is 162. Okay, so it looks okay, except that obviously I'm using the wrong network, so I will copy this one. And the network is always a /30. I shouldn't have used that one for SPF. Or maybe for my... Okay, but anyway, I can shut down this one. We'll do something else after. This is my network with DHCP. I can eventually change this one back after with the tree, for example. No IP. That should stop my problem here, and then I can go back to my network here. 5 is okay. And then I can try to ping the next up, which is now pinging the Linux. Doesn't look good. I should have tested this before. I'm just checking if I'm a correct router, so 22 is fine. This one is fine, I think. I think I will still match, go back to the RTP one. This one has some trouble, upgrade Linux, so maybe there is some trouble with that one. Well, 62, sorry, put the same address. Actually, this one is the other side, so should be 6. Okay, so I can reach the Linux. So now my radius definition is on the bottom here. I need to change because it's actually 2.5 is this address that we see here. So that's going to be my radius. And I'm going to put a 2 in the middle. So now I've corrected the configuration of the customer because he was actually pointing the wrong radius. Oh, I think I should work. If I do ping of that radius is working. Do I get an authentication? That's another issue. So if I do show lock, maybe I clear the lock now that I fix this problem. And we're still busy with some other stuff going on. Yeah. But I still see I have actually used to use another port, so that one was also. So important also the port. And I will go back to my radius. The port is important because that one is listening for authentication and authentication. So again, I can change that one. And I will put now the correct config for this one, which is actually provided here by the Linux and the TCL script. You just pass this one here. normally now he should reply. That's probably a situation you will have with the customer, even though, you know, he missed port or he missed IP address of radius. Still, you need to check with them. And then, obviously, next you try to get a user coming up. But you can see here, it's still actually timing out. The good stuff is obviously to check the port. Is it really what he would have in his Linux? So I can go back, eventually even ask him an access to his Linux machine and check. And suppose this is Linux. You can check if this address exists really easily. ifconfig. Does it exist? To do it? Yes. So should be okay on this one. Anyway, we can ping. Or can I check if a port is actually open like this? If you don't know anything about this application, you can still do it. Netstat. And I grep 1345, for example. This is port that is targeting here, 13645. And there's nothing open on that one. If I look at netstat AN, just to show you, on the Linux, you have a lot of stuff that is listening most of the time. For example, here you see that TCP is open on those ports. And actually, if you look at those ports, it's the one of the lab running. So it's a good sign. But obviously 13645 was not there. Actually, nothing with 645 here. So from here, you can already conclude that this is radius. Just by looking at this command, you can conclude it's actually not running as an application inside this Linux because you didn't open the port for it. And the script I have here, my lab, is the only thing it does is really looking at the port and the process. So this is a fixed config, but if you're gonna kill the radius, it's gonna look at those. But that command actually, just to see if it's open and not. So I need to restart my radius, and if you remember, there is a directory radius once you have installed it, with all the config, username and so on. To restart, just C is the new version. You don't need to do start or whatever on the back. You should start. So here, hopefully now, I could try to get some packet, see what's going on with my radius now, career lock. Next time that the user will come, I should be able to see it. Eventually, I could do shot no shot on the other side so that it goes a bit faster. Or request the customer to reload the router just because he's on his desk, and so it's going to be a bit faster to test this part. So hopefully it's going to start something. I can see the PPP coming, and I can see the radius, which is actually good. If you look at the radius packet being sent from an ISE or iOS router in general, you will always see access request, because this is a radius packet called access request, to the server, which port is actually using. Interesting, because sometimes they will use different server, and maybe one server is affected by something that the other one isn't. If you can already correlate to this port, you already have a lot of information on how to troubleshoot. This is not a port, it's an ID. In radius, you have from 1 to 255 sequence. After that, you need to wait. But the source port can be changed. This is the config extended mode where you can actually change the source port. So it's a combination of source port plus ID that forms actually the unique ID. Here we have 1645, and when you're looking at a debug in SG, it's interesting to look at those because you can also look at exactly where the reply is. Because when he says receive from ID 1645 to 54 is really a reply to this packet that I sent previously. It's not going to change anything here. Obviously, it's interesting because you see the access reject. Not only it's a good sign, even though it's an access reject, because your packet was actually touching the server and the server replied something. Seeing an access reject already kind of eliminates every communication or port issue at the server. He is able to treat the packet and reply. And inside the radius config, maybe you will need to look at, but that's another story. So here it's already good stuff. Obviously, since I have an access reject, I'm going to close the connection. That was actually what I was expecting to have when the user is not configured well. So let's go back to this radius server, and now I'm in the directory radius, and it's still the Linux that each of you can actually treat in his own username, and you have a file called users. In that file, I see a lot of definition. Some of them match this PPOE direct. I don't think so. So I can go and grep, or in ls you can use this forward slash and search for PPOE direct. It's not present. So a reason why I actually reject, because it was not in the database. What customer would potentially do on their side is probably going to Radius, then going to an LDAP server or something like this. So it's not always in the local Radius that you will find the answer. Sometimes he has to go to an LDAP server. But basically, if you are at this point with the customer, it's a customer responsibility to fix his back office. At this point, there's nothing else you can do. Except waiting that the guy returns something else than an access reject. So in my case, it's easy. I control it. So I will go and configure something for the subscriber. I'll just copy this guy, configure in my radius some password. Obviously now I need to know which password I configure on the CPE side, or just quickly check. The password is Cisco. So I can do create test equal. That's actually a free radius way of configuring. Is probably maybe not always what you're going to see, but I guess many customers might use free radius, but some will use the prime of Cisco also. So here, the thing is that you need to restart this radius to take this config. So I just restart, and with this new version, the only thing you need to do is this command here, radius blah 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 -r, and you restart. So let's see what he does now. Maybe it's already up. Oh, actually, it's already up. So we see this authentication state now, because with PVP we will always authenticate. And if I look at my configuration of PVP, I didn't involve any ISG yet. Although that configuration will be probably exactly the same when I have ISG. So BBBOE group was here somewhere. Where is it? Here. So I touch this one with PVPOE. I go to the virtual template with one, because it's bound in that group. I assign the PVP over here. The only thing I do is PP authentication, and notice there's nothing on the back. So you will need to look for a default. So the AA authentication PVP default is there. is correct. If I would have another name here, it wouldn't work. Group radius, it goes to the group radius. Perfect. Everything is fine, and actually we can also see this in the show log, where we see the authentication probably on the last part of this log. We can see here my request on radius, and here this is using number 1. You see, he already wrapped around before he was in the 200 something. And then here the corresponding answer 6045-1, and it's an access accept. There's nothing being returned by the radius, just the access accept, but that's enough to bring up this connection. And we can see here the negotiation on the IPCP. Most of the time you will see this negotiation with PVPoE where the remote, and most likely I would say 100% of the time in aggregation you will see this, is that he actually send you a 000 because he doesn't know his address yet. Once he gets, obviously at the time we also send to the remote what address we will use as an aggregator. He better agree with it because we don't have anything else. So here we hope to see a incoming conf ACK. If he doesn't agree with it, it could be that he doesn't support IPv4 because that CPE is only configured for IPv6, for example. Then what we would expect is a conf reject. Let's see what we get on the incoming. A conf rec is not a reply to a conf rec, so we need a conf ACK. So incoming conf ACK, it seems that the CPE agree for the aggregate to use this address, but it was better that way because we don't have anything else, like I said. So what on the CPE side, you send 00. And again here, like in LCP, you need to agree on both sides. And if you set an IPCP, which is IPv4, both sides needs to have an IP address because otherwise you will not be able to ping, obviously. So here you can see that that part went fine with the aggregator, with CPE answering, okay, I can agree with that. But then the CPE sends us 000. Every CPE will send 000 just because it doesn't know. And then we can see that the aggregator is looking at the pool and he returned his IP address. At this point, I could have returned an address from the radius and inject this address here. So this is all most of the customer will do is when they want to do something specific for a PVP subscriber like COS, ACL, and so on, it's in the access accept that you will do it. And we can do an exercise with it also a bit later. So here we actually tell him 00, I don't want a 10.11.11. So obviously we send a convnac because we understood what he's talking about. He's actually talking about getting an IPv4, but is not the right value. If we wouldn't support IPv4, there would be a conf reject at this point. Here we actually understood and we allow, but not the value they was proposing. We actually proposed this one. And then obviously we should expect a conf rec coming back from this guy because we send a convnac. And we can see this incoming configuration request coming back from the CPE asking for 10.1.1.1. And at this point you better agree. You better send a convnac because it's yourself or the aggregator that actually told him to use this. I've seen some bugs sometimes that he doesn't really agree with himself, but at this point, he better agree with himself because that's the address they provide from the pool. Another step in this IPCP is to install the route. So you should see a /32 somewhere, and that route will be installed. If you do show IP route, you should see it. Here, it's an accounting request. Is the other part of AAA. So account. So remember, AAA is access authorization and accounting. An accounting packet, it's just to tell the server this stuff came up. And what is the stuff that came up? Well, this username PVPoE with the radius authentication with a status start. So it's actually a new session that came in and it just started in my ISG. And some information about Nastport, client MAC address, and so on, that customer requires just because they want in the back office to be able to recognize this user. So sometimes you will see people opening keys because client MAC address, or they will eventually call it sometimes another name, but anyway, here we send a Cisco AV pair. You can also send the call identification sometimes. Here you have other possibilities to send actually together with this packet, and we can actually put this also just to show you. Reduce dash server, and we have some attribute command, which is here, and here is the vendor specific. So if I do vendor specific attributes, I can send them in the access request or in the accounting or in both. So let's put both just to see what it does. And then accounting. Then what else can I think as an attribute? Is a bit depending on what, in which direction or something like that. This one is the one I was actually trying to say is the call station ID, often used by customer, attribute 31. You will hear it a few times because once in a while it's missing in the accounting packet. So what can I do with attribute 31? I can send a MAC, for example. Most of the time this is what you will see. I can put the format, the type of MAC I want. Why not? Let's see if I use, for example, this one. Oh, sorry, IETF. Suppose I want to send it as an IETF. I can change uppercase, lowercase, whatever. So here on the other attributes, what others I can send, sometimes you will see this also account session ID, people that want the account session ID already in the access request. For example, I can also include this in access request. So I've reconfigured some attribute to be sent, and I will actually just, for the fun of it, compare this change I just did. See if it actually does something. With PVPoE, I should have a MAC address, so hopefully it populates it. So let's clear the session. So again, here, since we're looking at some of the latest version in 15, so subscriber session should probably already return information for PVP subscriber. And you can see here, it's detail internal. It's interesting. We'll see packet matching and so on. Even though it's not doing ISG, you have a similar output as the ISG. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to clear this guy. I have multiple ways, but let's clear this interface. Can do clear subscriber also. Both should work. And I can see my subscriber is gone. Now, while it's doing this, I will take my packets that I had before as an access request. And this accounting packet to see just some of the difference that you can induce for customer. Maybe I should have cleared the log before. So let's see what has been appended in this stuff. First, we can see access request. We have an account session ID now, which probably didn't have before. It's okay. So it's been entered correctly. why is it not needed for a customer is that he wants to correlate from the time that the user comes in. Sometimes you will see that this is missing. They have a lot of trouble on the application, but they don't remember they actually need it. And then it's another issue to find out exactly what they are missing. Here we can see the account session ID, but that should be there in an accounting request. What we were also looking at is the attribute 31, and I don't think it was populated in this case. A bit bizarre, So maybe he didn't really recover it, but I was missing, even though I asked him to send, it's not really populated. So as such, might be a bug. So that's how to authenticate a PVP session. So let's now go to introduce ISG on that PVP session. If I look at my show running config that I did before, I did create a few stuff for ISG, which is this policy here, IPL, and this policy was opening an open garden. And actually, I want to assign this service to my PVPoE also. So my PVPoE user will come up and needs to have this open garden service because eventually the only thing those PVP users can do is this going there. Or maybe customer would want to really assign a service for those guys and eventually doing some shaping. It could be a class that match all the internet traffic with some shaping below. Obviously, the class drop will probably not be good stuff. And actually here, since I match both, I can only match one service, so it should be okay to test. So I will assign this one so I don't have to create a new service in my radius. Like I was saying last time, if you don't remember exactly what you have to do, probably somebody did before. So let's see in this radius if I have already, because it was mine, some stuff. Otherwise, I can maybe look into the RTP ISG radius and see what we have, if I forgot something. So how do I actually auto-log in a service? Not very useful here because I don't have a service. Here is an example. How do I auto-log in a service? I have a user web login accept. This is actually what I need, but I'm just gonna copy this and edit my users file. So this is my user file under the PVPoE direct. I will assign this Cisco account info. It's important because that's how ISG works. If you would look at a BNG, you need a Cisco AV pair. Again, depending on what the BU decides, it's not up to you to decide. So what do I need to do? And remember from the presentation, A means auto-logon. So this one I leave it there, and I want to use this service here. Which is Cisco account info. I also wanted to actually use a framed IP address. Framed IP address, I don't have an example, I guess. Or I can probably find some. But if I remember correctly, it should be framed and then every time uppercase the first letter. Frame -IP, except IP was uppercase. So this is attribute that is normally ITF, so you don't need the plus equal in free radius, but if you put it, it's not really a problem. So suppose now if I look at this user, show IP route. I remember I was saying you should have installed it. Show IP route. I should see a /32 installed to that virtual access, and it's here. It's correct. And you see it's a network of 10. There was my loopback, and this one installed to the subscriber. Actually, we'll use something completely different here. I would say 1020, for example, to make sure it's actually working fine. 10.20.1.1, for example. So this is the framed IP address I want to return. If I do a mistake in this free radius, suppose I configure it like this and I forgot the comma, it will tell you. If I do also just restart, it says could not be restored because there is an error. And the script the build is also able to debug. So if I debug, it will normally tell you in one of those lines where something goes wrong, although I think there's a bit scratched here. Let me try again. Yeah, seems they scratched a lot of line. But normally it will say something with a parser that is failing, and it will show you the line. So here I will update this. Maybe that's something I need to fix. The other one, I don't know why it scratched everything. So here, let's do a debug. Still have trouble. Maybe I need to kill it first. Maybe the attribute is not okay. Could also be. So since I actually have a trouble to look at those users, I mean the debug reason. Oh, here he's actually saying sorry. Here there is an error with the parser, and it's telling you PPO redirect unknown name framed IP address. So I did on purpose this few mistake. Here, what do you can actually find in a free radius? Why is actually returning this, or even in a radius normally? That name always refer to an attribute, and an attribute in a radius is always just a number. But obviously, people don't ask you to type numbers all the time in a user's file. They will ask you to type a name that you can remember, or more easy to remember, or at least they make some sense, you know. So if I want to look at those attributes, I have a lot of dictionary here. If I do ls and do cat dictionary somewhere here, it will give me some location of files. Normally here, yeah, the problem is I need to know the prefix now because it's a new version. No way, he did install it. I don't remember. So maybe you can do locate. In Linux, you have some of those commands that you can use to locate stuff. Dictionary. That's the Wireshark dictionaries, but hopefully we have someone with free radius, which is here. So we can go here. LS should give me all the dictionary that radius can use. And you're probably going to find the same inside the prime of Cisco. I don't know the location on prime, but you can see. So here, the dictionary of Cisco is not the one we're probably looking at because we're looking at something that is actually an RFC, and we're looking at framed IP address. If you don't remember exactly how it's written, since it's an RFC, it will be in the list here. So we could already segregate all search to those RFC one, which would be, for example, egrep. If I'm not sure about framed IP address, I could choose, for example, FRA. And since I don't know if it's uppercase or lowercase, I can use -I. And then I could do a search with IP, so something like framed IP. Let's see that in all the RFCs, the dictionary RFCs. Lowercase. So I don't know which RFC. I mean, I know it's this one, but if I don't know where I will actually want to find it. So here I have an interesting output actually, because all those framed IP address I see here, actually framed IP address is actually what I type, I think, but if you will look, actually there's a type. So this is the real attribute. It's attribute 8 of the RFC 2865, and eventually this is probably what you would need to type if you didn't want to type any name in the user. So you would have to probably type RFC plus attribute 8, and to remember all those numbers, it's a bit stupid. So that's why they came up with those naming convention. Obviously, if your radius name it framed IP address like this, but another radius would name it with lowercase and it's case sensitive, you better use the one with lowercase, you know. But eventually the attribute is still the attribute 8 of that RFC. So CD radius. Now I can go to and copy this just to make sure, because I'm pretty sure I had that one. So let's users, and I will compare. And you can see I was actually missing a D. And just because of that, everything is actually failing. So here, I will replace with the right one. Cisco account info was okay because he didn't complain when he was returning the error. So it's Control O to save and Control X to exit. I'll restart it once more. Hopefully this time is the right one. The good thing, even if it didn't run, it will actually still restart with that new script. Oh, it doesn't care, check everything. So now we're running again. Again, in my lab, I can confirm this. And I can see the process running here. It detected it, all fine. So we should be set now to actually return a framed IP address. Let's see. I'll clear the lock, because probably this user is online. Clear subscribe, I will use the other one now. You can clear subscriber session all or clear per UID. Session, and then you have a few options. UID, username, all. Obviously before, because it was a virtual PVPoE, I could clear the virtual access, but here, suppose I'm doing the ISG way, I'm actually clearing the UID. 258. Okay. Let's see what it does. It's returning. Oh, I don't know. No, it's still the stop. Actually, here is an accounting stop to tell the remote radius that the session actually stopped. Sometimes very important for the customer too, because from there they actually will leave the IP address if they do framed IP address from the radius, because they have a database on the radius. Only when they see the stop, they will know this address is free. So important. So now I'm looking at my virtual access, and obviously I needed to install an ISG service, but I also needed to install a framed IP address. Now that I have ISG, I should do this. Show subscriber session detail internal to see all the information of that subscriber. What do I see at the end? Doesn't even look to run ISG. I don't see any service. If I do without detail internal, I just do the detail. I just see the virtual template. I don't see any service, nothing. Let's see if the radius returned it, because I know those people from radius. You ask them something, but it's never done. So here Look, what did he return in the access accept? And this time it was done. And you can see both parameters are returned. So maybe the IG didn't really work, but at least maybe the framed IP address would have worked. But here again, I see that is installing or actually providing 10.1.1.3. So whatever I've returned in this packet, nothing is taken care of. And normally, whatever radius return, it should have priority. The iOS and iOS XE have this rules that you need to authorize in something when he returns it from the radius. If you're coming from BG, you don't need to, but here you need. If I look at show run include A, you will see here authorization, and there is nothing about radius. So here I have PVP default group radius is the one that actually create this request, but nothing about authorization. If you are not sure because there are multiple one here, we can actually debug AA authorization. Let's see what AA tells us about this issue. And we can do a authorization, which is the process that actually will talk to Radius to send something or to receive something. Let's clear again that subscriber. And if I remember, 259, it's easy, it's increased by 1. Clear lock. And we'll wait until it's coming back. Okay, it's back. We can quickly check if something changed. Show IP routes. We see probably still the /32. Well, this time it's another address, but it's still the slash. It's still from the pool. Maybe now with the show lock, we will have a bit more information with this debug AA. So if you look at AAA, what it's doing, when the AAA it takes action, he always will tell you what it's doing actually out of this common AA. So if you have AAA authentication PVP, you know it's actually that AA common AA authentication PVP that is taking off. And you see also the method list that is going to take. And since we don't have we didn't specify a specific list, it will look for the default. And that's and where did we define that specific list? If it was one under the config of virtual template. And here there is none, so it should take the default. So let's go back to what it's doing here. So this one is perfect. Exactly what was configured to do. We send an authentication request. We have an access accept. While I would have expected some authorization to happen here, because we know iOS and iOS XE needs to authorize this. I also see nothing really happen in authorization. So probably authorization doesn't really start. And actually it's expected because again it's configured for so run include AA. There is no authorization network, or eventually that one is network here, but it's an accounting. So we need to configure a authorization network. So after that, what do I do? Default or a name. Obviously, since I didn't call a specific authorization under virtual template, there is a command here that you could do PVP authorization and a name. I didn't, so it don't be the default. And then where do I send it? Obviously not local because I want to authorize this packet coming from Radius, so it's going to be group Radius. So now I match this one. I have a PVP coming in. if he returns any parameters, I will need to authorize them, I know, and I will authorize them with this. There's no authorization PVP, it's always network. So once more, let's clear this stuff. 260, I guess now, yeah. Let's wait a bit. Gonna come up soon, probably. I can see it's back. It's tough to verify. Do we have this address that I was trying? And it seems it's working fine now because I already installed the 1020 that is returned from Radius. We can go through the log now to see what authorization did. So here now I have this authentication coming back like before with this and this. Seems okay. I have my PVP and I see now the authorization and it's picking a method list default. Sometimes if you have a bug, you can even give a walk around to the customer if you see which list is actually picking up here, and in case it's got some trouble. And you can see here also that now we will return this address. But not only that, we were actually doing this, which is actually an auto login of ISG. So normally this guy should be signed with the ISG service. Let's see if it's really the case. And I can see my ISG is already active on this one and is using that service. And eventually I can see the traffic class being installed. So now if I would go to my PVPoE user, I should only be able to satisfy what is in this service. Show subscriber service, there's also some command like this. Because since it's already cached, maybe it's better to look at what is actually configured or cached in that service. Name, or the one here. Detail, why not? What can I see there is what the service is actually configured for. I can also see who is actually using it. And right now, only one, obviously. I have only one subscriber. But since I can see it's cached with the correct stuff, I can only have this. So now eventually I would need to look into the class that are matching here, because you see it's actually a traffic class. And the traffic class config is under the show run, and section class map should be okay. I don't know what's in between, but probably no. The class here, no, I only see the access list. Well, let's see only the access list then. ACC, we're not looking at this one because eventually once he has installed this, whatever name the class was, we don't really care. So here this access list can only allow those one. Let's see if that's really working like we expect. We go to the CPE. Back. Show subscriber. Maybe this one already understand this one also. Show the grab session. I have only one. Funny because it says unauthenticated, but that's probably normal because we didn't authenticate the aggregation. So expected. Show. You can also in ISG get iOS, sorry, get the configuration of a virtual access because you know you actually clone it from a virtual template and something. And actually, I can do it this one here also. Show interface, virtual access, 1.1, config, I think on the end. Sometimes it's hidden. You can see that it's running loopback 0, loopback 1, but I could have changed this during the authentication. but so it would be interesting to look at. Here also is probably looking at the dialer interface, but that's interesting in the aggregate. You see it's derived config, and it's a combination of that virtual template with whatever you got from the radius. Another interesting stuff is maybe looking at show IP interface, virtual access one, and you should see the PR address correctly assigned and the loopback address that is using, plus some other feature if you have installed them. It's always interesting to look at that one also. So what we're doing is actually trying to verify the traffic class. Because now I'm running IG already on the PPOE, and you see I didn't introduce anything except maybe the service because it was local, but the service could have been in the radius. At that point, you don't see anything when you actually look at this virtual template. Template 1 doesn't refer anything to IG, no service policy, nothing, but user is actually running IG already. So here you will see only a few customers putting some service here. Most of them, when they have PVPoE, they just download it directly from the radius. Since it's an authentication, they already know what the guy will do. Most of the PVP are also ADSL, so it's like a steady customer they have on the back of a DSM. There's not somebody that will move or mobile on the back, so most of them, they will be assigned to some service directly from the radius. Show run, I just need to see where that PVPoE is configured, and I have this VRF PVPoE direct. I can still verify. Show IP route, VRF PVPoE direct. I can see my two addresses here, the one from the aggregator and the one I allocate to the subscriber. Let's try to ping through this one. For example, what do I have here? Show IP route. What do I learn from OSPF? This one would be an interesting case. Normally, I think it's part of this access list. No, we only have 163. I don't know if we know 163 is not being provided for the moment, so maybe it's missing or the OSPF is not fully. So let's tell the customer to try this one. Why not? Ping VRF PPOE direct, and this IP address that is cross the router, so it should work. And you can see it fails. And interesting is obviously to look at the session. No, show subscriber session in IG, and we're really starting to look at IG right now. Session detail. You can see here the 5 ping that actually sent, we just dropped. Is it supposed to be dropped? I think it is, because the access list doesn't even show anything in corresponding to this. The only thing that you can permit in the traffic class here is, or actually match in the traffic class, is 10.081.62 and this 1.163.1.1. But after you didn't, if you didn't match into that class, you will go to the next one, and the next one here is actually the default drop. Default drop because my service ISG was configured with the default drop. And you can see it here. Let's go back to the config. Maybe I do just a show run. Section serve, and then this service, probably get enough information to confirm. You can see that whatever match traffic class will be here. If you don't match, you go to this default, and the default in-out is to drop. So that's exactly what the IG would do, and it's actually what is configured for. You can see here the priority that we talked about when I was going through the PDF. Here, assume the priority would have 5 been 5, and above this one there would be another one with 10. the 5 will still have more priority. So even if it matches, you will not go. We'll go this one, then that one, and then eventually the default one. Is there a question?
Yeah, Alan, one question.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Is there a, like a show policy map, is there a command to check the policy configuration, subscriber policy configuration?
The only thing you can use is the also subscribe session detail. You know what traffic class. So if you remember, when I was drawing that pipe with all the small pipe and feature, this is the one. So
right.
A packet comes in and it will match one of those. If it doesn't match, it always goes to the default, it goes drop. Now, what is this? It's here a match to an ACL, but where is it coming from? From that service. And if you want to look at the service definition, you can subscribe a service. So with combination of session and subscriber service, you have everything. Because on the one session, I could have multiple service, and a service can have an effect on the traffic that maybe is not configured under the subscriber, but it's configured under the service. For example, I could maybe I could name in between, I guess. So here is the definition of the service. So I know that when my subscriber session came up, and I was assigned to with those different features, and in this case, it's a very easy feature. It's just to match the traffic. In that case, and it's only one. It's even more easy. I don't have to decide between different pipes. There's only one. And obviously the default that will be here. But it match this pipe. DD, maybe, sometimes, but definitely this time it didn't because he went through this pipe as the default drop. So we want to have a traffic that actually matching this pipe. And what is this pipe? If I look at the configuration of the service, I know that the service that I have assigned for SG is doing an input access group with this access list, output access group with this one, and you also install the default drop is actually what I actually also see here. So combination of both. Here it's easy, it's only one. But suppose you have multiple services, then you need to look at this priority. The lowest is the highest. So always think about SR priority when you look in ISG. If you have a priority 1, it's better than priority 10. You know, it will be much first the 1 as opposed to the 10. So, but here again, it was easy. But suppose you have all those lists, then you need to check all the pipe, but you also need to check all the service. You know, because maybe the customer did change, and suppose he would have changed here in 2. While a session is active, will not have any effect. So if I change this on the radius, if I'll go back to my radius or even the local config, and I would, and that service that was showing a bit before, if I would now change, for example, I create another class with another access list that actually want to give me internet access, and I would change this here in that service to actually assign internet, and then hopefully it works. No, it will not. You will actually still use the cache as long as there is one service, one subscriber using that service. So that's why it's interesting to look at both show subscriber service and show subscriber session. Combination of both gives you the idea of what the traffic needs to do. So, like I said, very easy for this one. And most of the time, and now I use this open garden, but most of the time you will see this is what ADSL users get. They get the internet service, not limited with the access list, but eventually they just want to do cost or accounting on those people and see what they do, and eventually if they exceed some quota or something, they will reduce speed. Or can they reduce speed by using the COA interface? So we'll see a bit later, well, I guess in the coming session. So that's one thing, but right now I still don't have a possible way to test the ping because I wanted to show the customer that if I put a traffic class that matches a specific access list, it should actually match that traffic. And if it doesn't match, it goes to the default drop and eventually should work. So here I have this one. This one should be available for at least coming in, and I can tell you I configure it the other way on the outgoing. So here, if I look at show IP route, because once you have passed this pipe, as I told last time, once this pipe here of feature is passed through the session and service, is actually ending in the routing of the ISG or IOSXE. So whatever is reachable will be reachable. But here, if I do show IP route, I don't see this route. So let's go to the service and actually assign it. Maybe I forgot to copy this one or something. Let's see here in my service that eventually represent the external connectivity from that ISG to the core or internet. Show IP interface brief. I don't have this address, so it's normal. Show run. Let's see OSPF what it does for redistribution connected subnet, so it should be okay. Let's put this one and see what it does. So the one of my access list, I can copy it. Let's put this one, verify. Use a loopback that is not used before, and that would be 100, for example. Okay, let's see if my IP route is showing it now. Well, at least I got it from OSPF this time, so I should be able to ping this one. So let's go back to my PVPoE. I'm now going to try to cross that feature of ISG, because that was the service. If I look now at this subscriber service is not very interesting because there's just a configuration of the service, and I know what is configured. I really want to look at the traffic class, and I can see my 5 packet here, and just that you see it's actually going to go 100 if I do 100. So 105 now actually. You see this 105 actually increasing. And you can see also the effect of dropping something. The first 2 lines, it always match any, but it doesn't really do anything with the traffic. It actually go through the different traffic class assigned on the traffic. The first traffic class that we have in this service is the IP L3 ACL in. The second is this one, but they both assigned to this subscriber via the same service. That was this one. So we have in matching, we see the packet is actually going up, and here, because we can ping actually the service. If the service return a ping, it will actually return the opposite. So we better have an access list that actually do the opposite. And if I do the alt, I can see here permit IP host 163.1.1.1, which is the source, to any CPE from that host that was on my service being defined. So a very interesting output. Right now, you might think of if it pings, of course, it's going to increase. But if you look at this output, when you start dealing with redirection, it's very interesting because customer will complain about redirection for everything. For a packet that doesn't arrive, for a DNS issue, obviously maybe the packet doesn't even arrive when there's a DNS issue. For a portal issue, for everything, it will say redirection fail, and obviously you will get the case, even though it's a back office issue. So, but looking at this, you can already tell you something, because if this was a traffic class of redirect, you should see incoming matching going out, depending on your service will be defined, you might have the open garden to return a packet, but again, you will need to match here some packet that maybe you saw arriving on the redirect. Because otherwise, if I do a TCP thing and I don't get the hack on my TCP, it means the TCP is failing. So that's what you will see here as a match. Another stuff that is interesting is actually the general match. You can see here a total of 110 because on the input, actually everything kind of match. On the output, obviously since the 5 ping were dropped, the remote didn't reply, or here in our case we actually dropped it on the service, which means they never arrive at the remote, and obviously we would not get a reply. But you can see here the interesting stuff. We actually sent those ping, but we didn't have the reply. So where they drop, yes. So probably an issue here in the SG, or maybe a config issue. If they were not dropped, maybe it's a network issue on the back. Just by looking at this output, you already have a lot of information, and all the traffic stuff. Then you have also all the other stuff like ipconfig, but you can also find it in the virtual access probably, or show IP route, this one. You see how many times this service was actually up on the per user, which interface is using. Probably this is not very nice. It should have probably be a virtual access, since this is the one that we were using. Virtual template is not the real interface. So you probably need to go back and check. Here we cannot see. Maybe inside the internal we will be able to see what bit more information on this part. Here is the physical, but we still don't see the virtual access. Another stuff that you could look at is there is some AA handle here. Here. That's actually the show a users. And you can see here, I think if I do 0x should be, I don't know if it's some, I never remember if this is the decimal number or not, but let's see. No, it was the exa value. So here I can also look at the AA information for that subscriber, and I can see what he actually configured. And you see here, this attribute 31 was actually there, even though it doesn't seem to send it to anybody. It's actually in the user. We have some IP address assigned, which we recognize. This one was the one assigned from the radius. And then we have some speed already, some counters that eventually will be returned in an access an accounting packet. So you can already see at this point if customer complain about counters, if the counter is already corrupted here. If it's not corrupted here, but in the radius, might be a AAA or radius that has a trouble. If it's already corrupted here, it's probably a platform issue that cannot really read the values correctly and not populate AAA with it. You still have some packet count here and MAC address of the client with what type of interface and this VLAN stuff and whatever. So a lot of information. Just by looking at show commands, you can already figure a lot of stuff. So that's PvP. We have 30 minutes left. Maybe I could start doing on the GP user. Is it okay? And then
this meeting is being recorded.
Oh, only no.
No, I just put a pass. So sorry.
Okay. So and then next time we'll see the prepaid functionality. After that, we can start going in, like I said, building our own app and then troubleshooting it. So when you have an ISG case, you will really be able to understand. Especially for PVPoE, you will see a lot of really easy cases on ISG, actually.
Excellent.
Okay.